You've been there. Someone raised their voice at you, cut you off, talked down to you, or tried to push you into a corner. And in that moment, your chest tightened, your mind raced, and a part of you wondered whether you should fight back or stay silent. Most people think power comes from being louder, quicker, harsher. But the truth is, the most dangerous strength is calm. Stoicism teaches that the person who controls their reaction controls the entire interaction. Aggressive people don't expect calmness, they don't expect clarity, and they certainly don't expect you to respond in a way that exposes their behavior without losing your dignity. Today, you're going to learn 6 verbal techniques that don't require shouting, arguing, or matching their intensity. Instead, they turn their aggression back into their own hands, making them realize they crossed a line. Stay with me. What you're about to learn can change every difficult conversation in your life. Trick 1. The Stoic pause. Use silence as a mirror. When someone comes at you with aggression, they expect impact. They want your emotions to spike, your voice to rise, your defenses to activate. Their power relies on immediacy, an instant reaction they can use as fuel. That's why the Stoic pause is so devastating. It interrupts their momentum and forces them to face something they never prepared for, themselves. Silence is a mirror most people avoid. In the heat of conflict, it becomes even sharper. When you pause, calmly, intentionally, without shrinking, you refuse to participate in their emotional game. You remove the energy they were trying to feed on, and suddenly, the spotlight shifts from you to them. They hear their own words more clearly. They feel the sharpness of their tone. They sense the imbalance between your composure and their volatility. That contrast alone is enough to start breaking their confidence. The Stoics understood the psychological power of creating space before responding. Marcus Aurelius wrote that the mind must never be dragged by impulse, but guided by choice. The pause embodies that wisdom. It's a moment where you reclaim ownership of yourself. You disrupt the chain reaction that aggression tries to trigger. You decide the pace, not them. Imagine someone firing a harsh comment at you, expecting you to snap back. Instead, you simply breathe. Your posture stays upright, your eyes steady, your expression neutral. You let silence fill the space they created. Not an awkward silence, an intentional one, the kind that forces reflection. Within seconds, the emotional balance shifts. They begin feeling the weight of their own intensity because nothing is pushing back against it except their own echo. People hear themselves more truthfully in quiet than in conflict. Arguments create noise that hides insecurity. Silence reveals it. The beauty of the pause is that it doesn't humiliate them. It simply exposes reality. And people often feel a sting of embarrassment when reality is laid bare. They might soften their voice. They might look away. They might even apologize without you having said a single word. The pause gives them space to recognize they crossed a line. But make no mistake, pausing is not passive. It is active restraint. It's choosing strength over speed. It's asserting that you will not be dragged into a conversation on someone else's emotional terms. The pause says, without a single syllable spoken, your intensity does not dictate my behavior. After silence has worked its impact, that's when you follow with a poised question designed to force clarity. Something like, are you sure you want to say it like that? Or, is this really the tone you want to use right now? You're not attacking. You're not accusing. You're guiding the person toward awareness. These questions create cognitive dissonance. They make the aggressor confront the mismatch between their behavior and the standards you're holding. And because you ask calmly, the question lands with even greater weight. The pause also protects your dignity. It shields you from reacting impulsively. It gives your rational mind the time it needs to take the lead. The Stoics believed strength is not in overpowering others, but in mastering oneself. That mastery often begins with 3 seconds of silence. Think about a past conflict where things escalated quickly. Imagine inserting a pause right before your reaction. That single moment could have changed the outcome. It could have changed the tone. It could have changed how you saw yourself. The pause is a shield, a mirror, and a recalibration of power. It is one of the simplest yet most sophisticated ways to make an aggressive person rethink their approach. They expected heat. Instead, they found stillness. And stillness, when held with strength, makes people question everything about their behavior. Silence is not emptiness, it's intention. And intention is what leaves the deepest impact. Trick 2. The boundary question. Force them to reflect. Aggressive people rely on one thing: your reaction. They want you to defend yourself, justify yourself, or fight back. The moment you do any of those, you've entered their frame, and now they control the direction of the conversation. The power of the boundary question is that it shatters that frame instantly. Instead of reacting, you redirect. Instead of absorbing their intensity, you make them face it. A boundary question isn't meant to argue. It's meant to interrupt the emotional charge and force their mind to switch from instinct to awareness. It's the conversational equivalent of flipping on the lights in a dark room. Suddenly, everything becomes visible, especially their behavior. Picture someone snapping at you with a harsh tone. Most people fire back or get defensive. But a Stoic trained response sounds like this: "What exactly are you trying to achieve by speaking to me that way?" The power of this question is not in its sharpness, but in its clarity. It doesn't insult the person. It doesn't escalate the moment. It simply shines a spotlight on the intention behind their aggression. An intention they usually haven't thought about. Aggressive behavior is rarely strategic. It's emotional, rushed, impulsive. When you ask them to explain the purpose behind their tone, you force them to step into reason. And reason is where aggression dies. Another effective question is this the direction you really want this conversation to go? It's calm, it's neutral, and it turns the responsibility back onto them. Now they must evaluate their behavior instead of focusing on provoking yours. This subtle shift creates internal tension. Suddenly, they are the one who must justify themselves. You've quietly inverted the power dynamic. The Stoics believed that the right question can dissolve illusions. Epictetus taught his students to examine motives before acting. Aggressive people rarely do this. They speak from urgency or irritation, not clarity. Your boundary question drags their reaction out of the shadows and puts it under conscious inspection. And that's uncomfortable for them, often enough to soften their tone immediately. Boundary questions also protect you. Instead of being pulled into the emotional current of the moment, you stay anchored. Forming a question requires a calm mind. Asking it requires composure. It forces you to slow the moment down and respond with intention, not impulse. You immediately shift from target to observer, from reacting to leading. Imagine someone telling you, "You never listen," in an aggressive tone. A reactive response would be, "That's not true," which only fuels the conflict. A Stoic response would be, "What makes you feel that way right now?" This question does two things at once. It acknowledges the emotion behind their words, and it places the focus on the present moment. Not sweeping accusations, not emotional history, but the actual trigger. It destabilizes their aggression without humiliating them. And when people feel seen in their frustration, the hostility behind it often dissolves. Another strong boundary question is this tone necessary for us to solve the problem? This is not an attack. It's a reminder. It signals that respect is a requirement, not a preference. And the moment you set that standard, the dynamic changes. You stop being someone they can push. You become someone they must address with intention. Boundary questions whisper a powerful message. I won't fight you, but I won't let you cross my lines. When you use this technique consistently, you transform interactions. Instead of matching aggression, you reveal it. Instead of being reactive, you stay centered. And people who rely on intimidation quickly realize that their intensity loses all strength in front of someone who refuses to be emotionally moved. Use the boundary question as your anchor in heated moments. It brings the conversation back to truth, and truth always humbles those who try to control through force. Trick 3. Label their behavior, not their character. When someone comes at you aggressively, the fastest way to escalate the situation is to attack who they are. The moment you say, "You're rude," "You're crazy," or "You're impossible," the conversation turns into a battle of identities. Ego rises, defensiveness spikes, and the aggression you're trying to diffuse only becomes stronger. Stoic communication avoids this trap completely by separating the person from the behavior. Instead of calling them names, you describe, calmly and precisely, what their words or tone sounded like. You're not defining their character, you're reflecting their actions, and that subtle shift changes everything. Instead of, "You're being disrespectful," you say, "That comment sounded disrespectful. Was that your intention?" Instead of, "Why are you so aggressive?" you say, "The tone just now felt aggressive. I want to understand what's behind it." Notice the difference. You're not telling them who they are. You're pointing out what they did. People are far more willing to correct behavior than identity. Accusing someone's character immediately triggers their ego, but describing a behavior invites reflection. Most aggression isn't premeditated. It's reactive, impulsive, or driven by stress. People often don't realize how harsh they sound until someone calmly mirrors it back to them. Labeling behavior works like holding up a clean, non-judgmental mirror. Suddenly, they can hear their tone, see their posture, and understand how their words landed. And that awareness often leads to something aggression can never produce: self-correction. Here's why this technique is so effective. First, it breaks the emotional cycle. You're not matching their heat. You're introducing clarity. Second, it introduces accountability without humiliation. They're more likely to soften because you haven't attacked their identity. Third, it protects your self-respect. You're asserting boundaries without raising your voice or lowering your standards. Imagine a coworker snapping at you in frustration. Instead of firing back, you pause and say, "The way that came out sounded tense. Should we reset?" You aren't blaming. You aren't shaming. You're naming what happened and offering a path back to calm. Most people step onto that path instinctively because it saves them from looking like the unreasonable one. Or imagine someone close to you throwing a cutting remark. You take a breath and respond, "That felt like a jab. Is that what you meant?" This gives them an escape hatch. They can say, "No, I didn't mean it that way," even if they did, and now they're obligated to change their tone to match that claim. You've guided the interaction back to rationality without confrontation. Stoicism teaches that we should judge actions, not souls. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself daily that people act from ignorance, emotion, or misunderstanding, not malice. Labeling behavior instead of character embodies that wisdom. It allows you to stay grounded in reason while encouraging the other person to do the same. And here's the hidden psychological effect. When people hear their own behavior described out loud, they often feel a flash of embarrassment. Their voice softens, their posture loosens, their hostility weakens. They realize they crossed a line, not because you punished them, but because you illuminated it. This technique keeps you calm, keeps them accountable, and keeps the interaction from spiraling into needless chaos. You're not reacting like prey. You're responding like someone who understands their own worth. Use your words as a mirror, not a weapon. A mirror makes people see themselves clearly. And clarity, more often than force, is what truly disarms aggression. Trick 4. The calm reframe. Rewrite the meaning of the moment. Aggressive people depend on emotional inertia. They push, and they expect you to push back. They raise their voice, and they expect yours to rise with it. They want to drag you into their emotional climate, so the conversation becomes noisy, reactive, and messy, because that's where they hold the advantage. The calm reframe destroys that advantage instantly. Instead of reacting to the emotion they're throwing at you, you redirect the moment into clarity and logic. You flip the script so completely that the aggression loses its purpose. A calm reframe is when you take their emotionally charged statement and respond with something grounded, rational, and steady. You choose not to follow their energy. You choose direction over reaction, and that choice exposes the weakness behind their intensity. Imagine someone raising their voice at you. Most people either yell back or shut down. But a Stoic reframe sounds like, let's stay with the facts, not the volume. You didn't attack them. You didn't defend yourself. You reset the standard of the conversation. Now the emotional escalation they were relying on has nowhere to go. They can either meet you in clarity or expose themselves further. Either way, you hold the frame. Reframing works because it forces the other person to shift from emotion to awareness. Emotion is fast, chaotic, and reactive. Awareness is slow, deliberate, and controlled. When you introduce a rational reframe, you force their mind to switch modes. This creates psychological friction. They feel the mismatch between their intensity and your steadiness, and that mismatch makes them question their behavior. Another example. I want to understand you, but the tone is getting in the way. This sentence is extremely powerful because it separates the message from the delivery. You're not rejecting their point. You're rejecting the hostility attached to it. People don't usually defend their tone, they defend their ideas. You've now removed their excuse. If they continue being aggressive, it becomes obvious their goal isn't communication, but control. That realization often produces embarrassment. Stoicism teaches that we cannot control external events, but we can control the interpretation of those events. The calm reframe embodies that principle. You choose meaning over reaction. You choose clarity over chaos. You choose to guide the moment rather than be swallowed by it. Let's look at another scenario. Someone interrupts you aggressively. The reactive response would be, let me finish. A Stoic reframe would be, I'll respond once you're done speaking. This reframes the moment from confrontation to structure. It subtly implies that calm communication is the standard you operate from. Your composure exposes the disorder in their behavior. It becomes clear which person is grounded and which person is losing control. Or maybe they come at you with sweeping accusations. You always do this. You never listen. Instead of arguing with the exaggeration, you reframe it. Let's focus on what's happening right now. You pull the conversation out of the past and back into the present, where real resolution actually happens. You're not allowing them to weaponize history or emotion. You're redirecting to reality. Aggressive people hate reframing because it cuts the legs out from under their strategy. They rely on emotional heat, and you're cooling the entire interaction down to a temperature where their tactics don't work. They can either adapt or expose themselves as unreasonable. Either outcome shifts power to you. But the calm reframe doesn't just influence them, it strengthens you. It trains your mind to remain measured under pressure. It reinforces the truth that you don't need to match someone's energy to maintain your self-respect. And over time, you'll notice something. The person who controls the meaning controls the moment. Reframing is leadership disguised as conversation. It transforms conflict into clarity. It turns noise into direction. And it leaves the aggressive person realizing that they lost control long before they raised their voice. Trick 5. The power of no defense. Stop explaining yourself. Nothing disarms an aggressive person faster than realizing they can no longer pull you into emotional explanations. Most people, when accused or confronted, rush to defend themselves. They justify their actions, clarify their intentions, or try to prove they're not the villain the other person is painting them to be. But the moment you start defending yourself, you've already stepped into their frame. You've accepted the idea that they have the right to interrogate you. And that puts you at a disadvantage. Stoic communication flips this dynamic. Instead of defending yourself, you simply refuse. Not with anger, not with sarcasm, with calm, unwavering certainty. You don't justify, you don't explain, you don't let them drag you into the courtroom they built inside their mind. Imagine someone saying, "You never think about anyone but yourself." A reactive person would say, "That's not true. I always..." But a Stoic response is, "That's your interpretation." No defense, no emotional energy, no opening for escalation. Or they say, "You clearly don't care." Most people would scramble to prove they do, but you say, "I don't accept that premise." Short, controlled, unshakable. These responses are powerful because they remove the emotional payoff aggressive people rely on. They want you to feel attacked. They want you to react from insecurity. They want you to start explaining yourself so they can twist your words and push harder. When you don't play the game, their strategy collapses. Psychologically, refusing to defend yourself does three things. First, it exposes the weakness in their accusation. If they were expecting an argument and you simply decline to provide one, their claim suddenly sounds exaggerated or irrational, even to their own ears. Second, it throws the emotional burden back onto them. Now they must explain, justify, or recalibrate. Your calmness forces them to confront their own intensity. Third, it demonstrates self-respect. You're signaling that your worth is not up for debate. You're not seeking approval or validation. You're not negotiating your identity with someone who is speaking from emotion rather than clarity. Stoicism teaches that another person's opinion is outside your control. Therefore, it should not govern your inner state. When you refuse to defend yourself, you embody this principle completely. You're no longer fighting to be understood. You're grounded in the truth of who you are. Consider a workplace example. A teammate snaps, you're impossible to work with. Most people would panic and start listing all the ways they've contributed. A Stoic reply, you're free to feel that way. 5 calm words that instantly shut down the emotional attack. There's nothing to argue with, nothing to twist, nothing to escalate. The aggressor suddenly has no leverage because you didn't hand them any. Or imagine someone close to you says, "You don't listen to me." Instead of rushing into justification, you respond, "I hear that's how you feel." This acknowledges their emotional experience without validating the accusation or weakening your position. It's firm compassion, not surrender. No defense does not mean you never communicate or clarify. It means you don't clarify under attack. You don't reward disrespect with explanations. You don't let someone else's emotional volatility dictate your self-image. When you consistently use this technique, something powerful happens. Aggressive people stop targeting you. They realize their usual tactics don't work. Their intensity doesn't move you. Their accusations don't define you. Their approval isn't required. And deep down, that often makes them regret the way they approached you. The person who doesn't defend themselves isn't weak. They're free. And freedom in conflict is the highest form of power. Trick 6. End the interaction with authority. Walk away without losing power. Every intense interaction reaches a point where continuing the conversation no longer leads anywhere meaningful. You feel it. The tone gets sharper, logic disappears, and the other person stops trying to understand and starts trying to dominate. Most people, afraid of seeming rude or weak, stay in the conversation far longer than they should. They keep explaining, keep negotiating, keep hoping the other person will calm down. But Stoic communication teaches something far more powerful. You do not have to stay in a space where respect isn't present. Ending the interaction is not avoidance. It is authority. Aggressive people expect resistance. They expect pushback, defensiveness, emotional reactions. Walking away calmly is the one move they don't know how to handle. It cuts their emotional momentum instantly. They were prepared for a fight, not for your composure. And when you end the conversation intentionally, their aggression has nowhere to land. It collapses inward. Ending an interaction with authority does not mean slamming doors, storming off, or making a dramatic exit. That still gives them emotional control. Stoic authority is quiet, grounded, and decisive. It sounds like, "This conversation isn't productive. We'll talk later." Or, "I'm stepping away now. We can continue when the tone is respectful." Or, "I'm not engaging with this energy." No anger, no emotional leakage, just a clear standard. These statements communicate something deeper than the words themselves. You value your peace more than playing their game. Here's the psychological impact. When you remove yourself from a disrespectful interaction, you take away the reward the aggressive person was seeking. They wanted a reaction. They wanted emotional engagement. They wanted the satisfaction of pulling you into conflict. Instead, you gave them calm distance, and distance forces reflection. Many people only recognize how unreasonable they were after the person they were attacking is gone. In the silence that follows, their behavior becomes painfully visible. They hear the tone they used, they replay their own words, and regret often hits harder than any verbal comeback could. Stoicism teaches that mastery often comes from subtraction, subtracting yourself from chaos, from hostility, from battles that don't serve your character. Marcus Aurelius wrote that you should withdraw from unworthy situations as one who stands taller, not as one who flees. Ending an unhealthy conversation is exactly that, rising above, not running away. Imagine a scenario at work. A colleague begins speaking over you repeatedly. Instead of arguing for space, you simply say, "We're not getting anywhere like this. I'll rejoin when we can talk constructively," and you step out. Suddenly, the only person left in the room behaving unprofessionally is them. Their authority weakens in the eyes of others, and your composure strengthens. Or imagine a personal relationship where someone insists on raising their voice to make a point. You respond, "I care about resolving this, but not like this," and you walk away. That moment draws a line they cannot ignore. It says, "You don't get access to me when you're disregarding me." Ending the interaction is a reminder that your boundaries are not theoretical. They're enforced. It teaches others that you communicate with intention, and you will not stay in any space that violates your standards. Over time, people adjust because they know aggression won't hold your attention. And here's the quiet truth. The person who ends the conversation controls the frame. You decide when the discussion stops. You decide what energy you accept. You decide who gets access to your presence. Aggressive people rarely admit it, but when you withdraw with dignity, something shifts inside them. Their certainty falters. Their superiority cracks. They feel the weight of their own behavior without anyone there to absorb it. And in many cases, the apology comes, not because you demanded it, but because your restraint revealed the truth. Walking away is not a loss. It's a declaration. It says, "My peace is not up for negotiation. My dignity is not a bargaining chip, and you do not get to decide the terms on which I speak." Ending the interaction is the moment they realize they didn't just lose the argument, they lost access to your energy. And that's what makes them truly sorry. At the end of the day, you can't control how aggressive people speak to you, but you can absolutely control the way you respond. And that response is where your power lives. These 6 verbal techniques aren't about winning arguments or proving someone wrong. They're about protecting your dignity, preserving your peace, and showing others that you operate from clarity, not chaos. When you pause, when you question, when you label behavior, when you reframe, when you refuse to defend yourself, and when you end the interaction with authority, you shift the entire dynamic. You remind the world and yourself that respect is not negotiable. If any part of today's message resonated with you, choose one technique and practice it the next time tension rises. Strength isn't built in theory, it's built in moments. Thank you for watching. If you found value here, like, share, and subscribe for more Stoic guidance. And remember, your words are strongest when your mind is steady.